1,700 people die every day in the US of cancer. Roughly 1,000 of those deaths, so more than 50% of those deaths, are preventable. That is people that are getting diagnosed at stage 4 that we should be finding at stage 1 with the right tools already in place. It is people who are getting treated at the wrong place. It's people that aren't getting treated in accordance with evidence-based medicine. So it's all of these pieces that we could fix today. And I think a lot of the folks historically, still today, see the big dollar amount in a potential new blockbuster drug, chemo, whatever else, to improve the actual cancer care. And what we're saying is that there's actually this low-hanging fruit where we can improve outcomes and reduce costs today.
Welcome back to Funded, the show that takes you behind the scenes of the startup fundraising journey. On this episode, I sat down with Ben Freeberg, founder and managing partner of Oncology Ventures, a seed-stage fund investing in data and infrastructure startups that are transforming cancer care. Ben just closed a $62 million Fund 2, which was oversubscribed, and contains an LP base that collectively treats 1 in 3 cancer patients across the US. Ben's perspective on the oncology industry is so unique because he approaches it from 3 different angles: as a trained VC, a former operator at a cancer startup, and as a cancer survivor himself, which we get into. That combination shapes everything about how he evaluates startups and how he built his LP base, as well as the Oncology Ventures community. We covered a ton of ground in this episode. Ben breaks down why commercialization clarity is the #1 thing that kills deals in his pipeline, what it actually takes to build a specialist fund from scratch, and how he turned cancer centers into both investors and distribution partners for his portfolio companies. I really enjoyed this conversation with Ben, and I hope you do too. Let's get into it. Well, I guess a good place to start would just be kind of at the beginning. So, Ben Freeberg, thank you so much for joining me on Funded.
Appreciate you.
You just announced the closing of Fund 2 of Oncology Ventures, and that came just under 2 years following the closing of Fund 1. Is that correct?
That's right.
So
this feels like a little bit of a press tour.
Congratulations, first off. Tell me a little bit more about what has happened since you closed Fund 1 and what led to ultimately pulling together the $62 million that you brought for Fund 2.
So we got a little bit of it was right place, right time, etc. A little bit is luck. But what we saw and why I launched the fund in the first place was cancer is this 210 billion plus market growing at 14% per year. And we're at a point where 1 out of 4 to 1 out of 5 people will get cancer in their life. It's health plans' largest cost driver. It's now employers. It's the 4th year in a row where it's the top driver of cost for self-funded employers is cancer. And so all these things are coming together. And at the same time, you have tech, data, infrastructure, AI that is more applicable to healthcare than it ever has been in a compliant manner. And so we kind of just saw this intersection of how do we improve outcomes and reduce costs for cancer care. And over the past, I would say 3-ish years since I originally went to market with Fund 1, all of that has played out in spades with cancer centers looking to bring technology into their workflow, physicians getting ready to adopt AI, tech, etc., and more founders, because this wouldn't exist if we didn't have really strong founders to back and take this leap.
How did your pitch for Fund 2 change from your pitch when you were going out for Fund 1?
So the biggest thing we learned towards the end of the Fund 1 raise is that our perfect partner is a cancer center or a healthcare system or someone delivering some form of cancer care research are the people that are all 3 things that are important to a venture capital fund, which is a potential limited partner, so investors into us as the VC fund, a potential deal flow source, so they are getting pitched companies every day to improve their workflow, to be in addition to their care navigation team or whatever else it is. And number 3 is a commercialization engine to hopefully help partner with, structure pilots, structure real commercial partnerships with our portfolio companies. And so we focused a lot of our fund to raise around getting to know every innovative cancer center and institution we could.
Hmm.
So I think just focus on limited partner type.
Yeah. Interesting. It strikes me that you have a very, very like clear opinion of the space within the cancer treatment industry,
Mm-hmm.
and that is it's unique. It's something that makes you differentiated. What do you think the rest of the investor space is kind of misdiagnosing about the solutions for cancer that is kind of creating this white space for you?
So right now, to give you stats, so 1,700 people die every day in the US of cancer. 1,000, this is what research and people much smarter than me have figured out, roughly 1,000 of those deaths, so more than 50% of those deaths are preventable.
Mm.
And so there are a lot of folks, and preventable, to clarify, with data, infrastructure, technology we have today. That is people that are getting diagnosed at stage 4 that we should be finding at stage 1 with the right tools already in place. It is people who are getting treated at the wrong place. It's people that aren't getting treated in accordance with evidence-based medicine, that are neutropenic. They don't have enough white blood cells and are getting sent to the emergency room with other sick, immunocompromised people because there's no other tool to help divert them out. So it's all of these pieces that we could fix today. And I think a lot of the folks historically, still today, see the big dollar amount in a potential new blockbuster drug, chemo, whatever else, to improve the actual cancer care. And what we're saying is that there's actually this low-hanging fruit where we can improve outcomes and reduce costs today. Sure, we're probably not going to have in this fund any like 1,000 to 2,000x returners, which you get if you play enough in the bio realm. But we're also investing into companies that are only burning, maybe 20% above top line when we get in, which is for seed and Series A companies, pretty good.
Yeah.
So you have these capital efficient models that we could attribute and track ROI today. So I do think that the market has gotten there over the past few years, which is why I think the Fund 2 raise went a lot smoother than it was when we first went to market explaining that this niche exists. So that's probably the biggest piece, is how do we I want everyone to do one deal in our space, and we're hopefully the portfolio where all of their one deals are a part of.
Yeah, one of the things that it seems like makes you very unique in terms of how you evaluate potential investments is the focus on commercialization and or the potential to scale up the number of large contracts through health systems, that kind of thing. Could you maybe give a couple of examples of companies that are solving problems in the cancer space that might be like overlooked, some of that low-hanging fruit that you mentioned?
So this is the number one reason I believe that deals fall out of our diligence pipeline and we end up passing, is every startup we invest into or that's going to make it through to our investment committee needs to clearly articulate how they are going to make money today. Rules on the field exist. You have existing CPT codes. You have specific budgets you could tie into, whatever else. How do you make money today, given everything that's happening? And if and when everything goes correctly, you have an engaged population. That could be end patients, that could be provider, that could be a pharma researcher, whoever that is, who are using your platform tech solution service. What changes then about your business model at scale where you take part of that attribution of ROI and savings or whatever that is, or improved outcomes? And that's where a lot of people fall off, is they either don't have a really clear understanding of how to make money right now or how to make money in the future if everything goes well. So to answer your question, there are maybe two companies that in our portfolio that perfectly articulate that. One is, it's called RISA, RISA, and they are artificial intelligence for prior authorization. And so the prior authorization problem for people listening, you can't just go in, if you have insurance, you can't just go into the hospital and get an x-ray and have it be covered. You have to have your physician or some person in the healthcare system request an authorization from your insurance company to get covered for that x-ray. one-off events like that, that's fine to do. But cancer, I'm a cancer survivor myself. I was taking 40 different medications. I was in and out
Mm.
of the hospital for infusions in the emergency room, surgeries. You went to your PCP. And so getting prior authorizations for all of those different tests, meds,
Mm.
visits, events is just unsustainable. And you have to
Mhm.
figure out what is guideline. And so they are this AI copilot that perfectly does all of that,
Mm.
reduces administrative burden, perfect drive to that bottom line of revenue
Mm.
to date. So that's one. And then on the other side, um, we invested into this company called Uncuffery Care, which is for survivorship. So once you're finished with, we're now at 19 million cancer survivors in the US, which is absolutely incredible. I mean, cancer really is, my goal is to make cancer more of a chronic disease and treat it as such, which would be amazing. It's how I feel with mine now about 8 years out.
Mm.
But when you finish with your treatment, what do you do? Like
Mm.
you just I lost my hair. I just had a bunch of surgeries. It was hard to walk. I just had drugs pumped into my body that were killing all of my white blood cells. And then your oncologist is seeing the next patient. And my primary care provider wasn't trained in that. And so
Mhm.
they built this platform to help transition you back to your day-to-day life, get you back to work quicker, get you back to feeling healthy and active. And they have navigators and nurses that help you with that journey.
Mm.
And there's existing reimbursement codes to help them get paid for
Mm.
that too. So those are kind of two of the types of companies we'll invest into.
Yeah. Hmm. That is super interesting. You've written a bit on your website about the three unique perspectives that you kind of bring to the table
Oh yeah.
as a solo GP.
Thanks for reading the site.
Of course,
Yeah.
yeah. So you have investor, operator,
Mhm.
and patient, obviously. I'd love to give you a chance to tell your story a little bit more, but then also explain kind of, I'm curious to hear what do each of those three perspectives kind of bring together that give you that unique lens for evaluating new solutions for cancer treatment?
It was really funny because I was trying to, like most people probably listening to this podcast, and I'm sure you and everyone else, like when you first started Air CFO, you probably had a list of a bunch of business ideas.
Mhm.
And I remember going through, I just had so many ideas I always wanted to build something. And then I went through each one and was like, okay, what is in here that like I could go tell the world about? And good luck trying to do that better than me.
Hmm.
And this was the one. And everything else, like, yeah, there were like some fun ideas on there, but there were people that were just better equipped, either had more capital or more experience or whatever else to do that. And so I was reflecting on my own journey. I was trained as a venture capital investor. I got to work for a few amazing funds historically, learned how to do the job of a VC. How do you find companies, diligence them, think about market competitive dynamics, the financial profile of the business. And then I worked for a cancer startup in its early days called Time Care, which was value-based cancer care. How do you help improve care in both the community setting and outside of
Mhm.
maybe your traditional top academics?
Mhm.
And we partnered with health plans. And so I got to spend time with the operations team, the growth team, the tech and data and actuarial team, and learn what it takes to build a real comprehensive cancer startup. And then there's only so much you could do. People, you could shadow people or whatever else, but going through the experience, especially my first year before I was diagnosed, was a bunch of misdiagnosis. They missed it when I crashed into the emergency room. They told me I was dehydrated. Then they told me I had kidney stones. Then they told me it was like back pain from getting older, and there were all these things. And so I went through all of this headache with the system, both pre, during, and after that. I was at Memorial Sloan Kettering with full health insurance and a job that was being flexible with me, keeping my salary while I was going in and out of treatment with family support. Check, check, check across the box. And I was young. I actually can't fathom how people go through it without just one of those things.
Mm.
And so to bring it back, I think the fact that every time I meet with a company, I'm able to put each of those three into position as we learn more about them and their go-to-market strategy. I mean, I've had founders cry during first meetings because they are spending so much time educating the market on healthcare, then cancer, then their business model within it, then why it matters to the patient and why it matters to the provider. And the fact that I am with them before they start talking about what all of that is just like you like feel them like just like relax in their chair. And it's just a different conversation. So I think I don't know how much of that you could like share like real ROI for, but I do know that every single deal we have wanted to get into where we have said, yes, this made it through our investment committee process. Here is the check we want to write. Every single one so far has accepted that capital, which I think is a challenge for a lot of fund ones. And I think it's because of when I genuinely care about it, understand what they're doing and are doing the number one thing they need help with, which is commercialization.
Yeah. And you've probably like viscerally, literally felt a lot of the pains that they are trying to solve, right?
Oh my God, in so many different ways. Like we have one company, Reimagine Care, that manages cancer care outside the four walls. Oh my, if every time I called the nurse hotline when I was going through treatment and I had a headache or whatever else, the protocol is go to the emergency room. That was like a 25-minute cab. Then you sit and you wait for an hour if you're lucky. And then you're not really getting any sleep. Like Reimagine Care is helping. They resolve now 97% of symptoms outside the hospital. I mean, what I would have given to have that access. So I did for a while, like part of my investment thesis was going through and I wrote down every single issue I had with my cancer care experience.
Yeah.
Okay, what company that could fit each part of it and then comprehensively. So, yeah.
Are there any opportunities from that list or that you see in the market today? Like if you could wave a magic wand and solve one specific pain point within the cancer survivor's journey, like what's that company that you're looking for that you feel like doesn't exist today?
For cancer survivorship in particular,
or sorry,
cancer care
for
journey?
Cancer care. Yeah.
Cancer care, 1000% detecting every cancer in stage 1. The survival rates of stage 1 breast cancer versus stage 3 is 97 to 30%. Costs obviously are just multiples and multiples. And there are some, like if you met anyone that has pancreatic cancer, I would bet that person was diagnosed and caught in stage 4 because it just manifests itself in different symptoms. And when it spreads, so like when it metastasizes through your body, gets into your blood, and there's so many ways where it just becomes really difficult to treat. Surgeries become more complex and complicated, and just costs go up, survivorship goes down. And so if we could figure out a way to detect cancer in stage 1 or even before for everyone, we'd be in a really good spot. And then for cancer survivors, just because I think that's an interesting question regardless, is 10% of cancers recur. And my cancer in particular has cardiological side effects. And so how do you really manage those patients? Like I shouldn't have just gone back to my PCP, my primary care provider. I should have a different protocol. Like I should be following for my specific cancer, for the chemo I had, for the surgeries I had. I will have different continuous side effects than a traditional other patient that is my age. And so figuring out how to personalize that part of the process, I think is a huge, huge opportunity that people are starting to solve in some way, shape, or form. Concierge clinics are doing a nice job, but a lot to be done.
Yeah. Good news is the cardiological side effects don't seem to have impacted your pickleball game. So,
and thank you so much for saying that. Yeah. And if we could use the rest of the time just on.
Yeah. You mind if we shift gears a little bit and talk about the kind of process that you go through of evaluating an early stage company, just for a founder out there who would be like looking to pitch you? So what would you say is the best way for a founder to get put on your radar?
So by far, because we get a whole host of different forms of introductions, ideally it is from a CIO, CFO, COO, someone at a strategic institution that is your core buyer that reaches out to me and says, we are interested in this. This is a huge pain point. This company is doing it the best. Can we interview you and take a look? Whenever I get an email like that, we'll set up that meeting within a week. Ideally, warm introductions help, but we respond to and read thoughtful, curated, direct outreach from companies. But we need the signal that this is a pressing problem right now in the market, and that's a really easy way to do that.
Yeah.
I always personally prefer when they send a deck ahead of time. I will always read that and have a conversation one-on-one in that meeting. I don't like being walked through slides in a 30-minute call. It just feels like something I can do
Totally.
on my own.
Yeah.
So that's probably the best thing. And then in terms of what we look for during those early conversations is, do you really understand the market, and do you really understand your buyer and how this fits in? Because integration into existing workflows is really tough. If you're selling something that a physician has to use, I need you to understand, like, they're counting clicks now, physicians, on different products and platforms. If you're adding a few clicks, you better be taking away something. And so just people that have really thought through, tested that in a different manner, and understanding how it fits in, I think is a really important early signal.
Mm-hmm. What's the persona of a typical founder of a cancer care startup? Is it more on the medical side, and so the business acumen is a little bit more rare? Like, what do you think is the most uncommon trait that helps an early stage cancer care founder stand out?
I just put this into Claude, actually, with like our own internal data, and almost every single successful company we've backed or seen in the market and mistakenly passed had someone, and sometimes that is the same. It's an individual person, but most of the time it's two. Most of the time it's two, where it's someone that understands the business financial number side and someone that understands clinical. And you really need both. In cancer care in particular, just a pure tech team with no clinical support, really tough. We have invested in seeing, just purely clinical teams, but it's just, I don't think you should be getting anything or giving away anything for free in healthcare. I think free is treated as free in a lot of these board meetings. And so I really think you need someone to push you to effectively price and attribute that cost savings where that's applicable, to attribute that net new revenue generation where that's part of your story, with the how does this fit clinically, and how do we make sure that if you are going to touch a patient, there's no room for error.
Yeah. What are some ways in which cancer care startups or just companies that touch the healthcare system in general are different from what a typical VC would be evaluating in the like general kind of like software space?
That's a good question. Understanding the complexity of it. I think that we've seen a lot of companies in other disease states try to pivot or expand into cancer, and you see like 6-12 months in, they get out of it. And so I think it's the clear understanding of the end buyer and user is just a bit different, whereas some maybe general enterprise SaaS or consumer angles, if you figure out, it's just a different type of moat. I think for us, distribution is a big moat. Once you are in with and have access to a lot of either the top cancer centers, healthcare systems, pharma companies, it gets pretty difficult to unseat you if you're doing a really good job. And again, you're tracking and attributing that good job you are doing with so many different players in this space. But aside from that, we look for a lot of the same things. We want to make sure it's an interesting business from a unit economic standpoint. They are different from their competitors, and they understand, and we understand why that is. They have an effective team that both is everything from financial to customer success to growth. So I think all in, as long as you understand your core buyer in a real way, we're just investing into hopefully good businesses and people.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It sounds like the pursuit of business within the cancer care space, it can't be like a side quest. It really needs to be something that the team is like 110% dedicated on that, and not any of the other parts of the market.
Oh, that's the other thing I'll say too. We have so many people reach out to us like that are physicians or people at institutions, and they're like working on something on the side. We won't invest into a company unless there's at least one person that is putting in more than 100% of their effort into this, because it deserves that type of attention. And this isn't going to like just somehow get there with one person doing it as a side project.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. That's the case for a lot of startups, I would say. Yeah. Could you talk a little bit about the relationships that you've built with the health systems? Because I think that's a very symbiotic kind of relationship that you've built, having them both as LPs, but also as customers for your portfolio. And
Yeah.
yeah, just like tell us about how that contributes to the value that you bring as an investor in these early stage startups.
The first thing we did was, well, there were two things we did. One was we set it up in a way where we were delivering value to them today. And so what do they need? They're getting pitched by startups all the time. It is not in their core area of expertise to spend time diligencing a company. And they also, if you interview a lot of these systems, not just them, but any type of real enterprise buyer, they don't really spend time saying, okay, wait, what if we implement the solution and this company is out of cash in 6 months? What happens? No one really asks for the financial model. And these are like base case, not base case, but kind of bare minimum requirements as we're doing diligence on
Mm-hmm.
a startup is understanding cash runway, understanding burn, understanding unit economics. And so they'll come to us and they'll say, hey, this is the problem we're having. Here's some companies we're looking at. And we will help them in real time do that diligence and say, okay, if you're looking for X, like what's most important to you? Are you looking for a team that could implement in a day and get in with two of your physicians? Or are you only interested if this company could do a full enterprise-wide rollout and you want them to take each part off your plate and you're using Epic here, but maybe Cerner or something in another region? And so depending on their tech constraints, their budgets, their timing, what's important, we help guide them. And we only introduce them to companies once we've invested, just as a safeguard.
How many health systems do you do that for?
We are now at 22.
Wow.
And we're good right now. I don't think we could take on other partners at this stage. We'll hopefully start talking about scale, but I think we have a lot to even grow into with this current set. And that's in terms of a formal relationship. The second thing we've done is built a community. Like, it is amazing where community oncology centers, talking to academic medical centers, talking to distributors, talking to health plans, talking to pharma, health systems, all in the same room, doesn't really happen. And we are bringing them all together through our limited partner advisory committee and through our events we do, which we're excited to have you as part of it. It's cool. You'll like see this in the room where it's like free. Like we just came back from a community oncology conference. Community oncologists talking to community oncologists, some other people in the room, but it was a bit different. And then you can go to other things and find those groups, but in a way where you're just talking about tech innovation and how to improve cancer care for the end patient. It's just rare, I think, that those folks have found rooms like this to have that discussion. And so we are really intentional about continuing to build that community around it too, which might sound like a softer moat, but I like actually I think it's one of the things you will feel like when you're in that room.
I mean, I talk to a lot of founders and VCs who are trying to build community. Obviously you have a very focused topic that you're bringing together everyone on, but tactically, like, what do you think has led to you being able to really kind of bootstrap this highly engaged set of people who are getting a ton of value from all of the events and all the things? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So before top of it, like, I'm very intentional about who we reached out to or brought into the fund. Like, we were very fortunate. We were able to turn down limited partners for this fund, and we push it. Like, we only really spent time getting to know, and this is one of just in the spirit of this podcast, whenever you're pitching anyone, do not just get on the phone and start pitching. Like, spend the first few minutes really understanding who you were talking to and why they're excited or not excited to talk to you, because it just makes your life so much easier. And we were able to spend a lot of time learning we talked to some people in systems that I just really didn't feel like they were going to want to show up to that room and that they were going to be excited to get to know these partners. And it's clear, like, if you really spend time researching them and getting to know them and asking them these questions, that's kind of part one, is like, how do you even set up the right invite list, right? Because without that, you're like, whatever event you put on is going to be tough. Two, I do think I have the benefit of it being really focused. Like everyone there in their room wants to improve cancer care, and that is what's bringing everyone together. So it's a little bit of that, but I think there's so many people, like you run a consumer fund, like bringing in an expert in how you can get people engaged and improve lifetime value of that customer and reduce the CAC, like cost of acquiring that customer. Like people in that industry want to learn about
Yeah.
that. Maybe it's a bit different, but having a very clear vision and then not overdoing it. Like we do one in-person annual event per year, and then we do a few like very curated small pop-ups in different cities of 12 to 16 people,
Mm.
a few of our portfolio companies, a few of our LPs, a few strategics, whoever else, and it's really nice. And we've done that. Like we hosted one event of like the working title of that event was all of the things that go wrong during startup implementation for cancer centers.
Hmm.
And people were really interested in learning about that. And we've had the good fortune of doing it at some really cool places with really good sponsors and partners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. So when you are having conversations with these early stage founders, what are the questions that you sort of hope that they are asking of their investors as they're going through the process?
This is such a good question. It is genuinely what you put into it, what you get out of it. Like the founders in our portfolio that have closed the most amount of our strategic LPs and strategics in our network are by far the ones who have reached out to us the most asking. We're at now 23 portfolio companies. And I really do spend a lot of time being proactive and curating those introductions. But when they send me a note saying, hey, we are looking to get in with X person at this institution, here's the latest collateral material, here's why we think it's interesting, I get that in the CEO's hands of that system that day. And it's like over 95% for sure, probably close to 100% of a double opt-in from there. And it's because they make it so easy for us to do that. And so that's what stands out is if you put in that extra 2 seconds of, instead of just saying, hey, do you have any cancer centers that we should meet? Like, I can't really do anything with that. Like, I'm not going to go like do a broad base, whatever. But if they're like, hey, we're actually expanding into Georgia. Do you know any community oncology clinics outside of Atlanta? Oh, yeah, you should meet my friend here who we know is looking for X and Y. And so it's that intentionality and the consistency behind it.
Yeah.
And follow up. Every industry has this, but health care sales are long and people change roles and they have other things going. They're taking care of patients and their providers, and that's their priority. And sometimes you catch them on a day where they don't have the time to enter in their notes into their EMR. And so sometimes you have to follow up.
Yeah. Is there a signal or a specific kind of indicator when you are interacting with the founder through the diligence process that is sort of like a proxy for that characteristic?
That's a really good question. There are a few things. I always ask my EA how kind they were to him during the process. Like there are some people where like we all talk
Right.
like you and treat people with respect. And so there have been a few people that were like very like curt or short or like disrespectful to him that like don't talk to like people like that in general. So I think it's a little bit of that respect that we look for, which is also why some funds do diligent. It's just like when you spend time with someone, not just in a one-off 30-minute meeting that you could have down to a science, rinse, and repeat, and you get to know someone over a few weeks and months, it becomes very clear whether or not your communication styles are aligned, whether or not like sometimes we get overwhelmed, and there's most cancer center CEOs aren't going to read a 10 paragraph email with all of the reasons why you're so great. Like it has to be concise with, if you want to dig deeper, dig deeper. And so we look for people that are very, just understand your buyer, understand your partner, make it clean and easy for us to continue to learn and engage while understanding that if you want to go deep, I know every number like in the back of my head in a way where, we would love that experience. And so just people that do all of that, or normally those people that like just care.
Yeah.
Like we have some of our best founders in our portfolio. Like if you tell them, no one's buying this and no one has bought it for 3 months, they either figure out a way to pivot that business into something that is workable, or they'll be like, okay, who are the next 10 we're going to reach out to? And like learning from them. And I think it's a little bit of that grit too we look for.
Yeah, absolutely. What does the diligence process look like for you? I mean, we talked about like the parts of it that are important, the things you look at first, but what does that timeline look like, or that cadence of building that relationship with a founder before you get the conviction to invest?
All over the board. We will not invest into a company until we shake someone's hand in person. Like I need to know you are real.
It's a good rule.
Which I think has kind of come in and out of favor in the venture world, and we've stuck to that, which has been really nice.
Yeah.
And so just making sure that you have time for in person, it's just different. And it's better. So that's always part of our process. It takes anywhere from, 2-3 weeks to a couple months, depending on their timeline and dynamics, and sometimes how deep we have to go. So there are certain companies where we have looked at, just by the nature of the industry, there's 5 companies going to market with the same business model and market strategy. We know that this market is interesting. We're not going to choose one of those 5 to invest into until we've really spent time with each of them and with each of our potential customers and buyers, understanding how they would evaluate it. And that just like, we can't do all that in a week. Just any fund I don't think could do that well in a week.
Seems like a cheat code though, honestly, when you're a VC, like to be able to almost run the bake off with the customer.
It is why I think specialist VCs will continue to outperform and win, because we get sent deals from VCs saying like, hey, we're looking at this company in this space, have you seen it? We're actually looking at them and their 4 other competitors right now, and it's a really, once it makes it to your other question around like early in diligence, what do you go through? Once you've seen 20 early detection for cancer startups, it's easy to figure out which ones should go deep or come out of your diligence pipeline. But if you don't spend time looking at cancer startups, let alone early detection for cancer startups, it's really hard to understand whether that is a best in class or, one that might not be here in a few years, unfortunately.
Makes a lot of sense. You obviously spend a lot of your time when you are pitching LPs or you are evaluating a founder, you spend a lot of time like reading a room. And in your spare time, you spend a lot of time in front of a microphone, except you're standing up and you're telling jokes. How do you think that being a comic has made you a better investor?
The quick real-time response to what is and isn't working. And so the best advice that comics get and give, stay in the bit. If the bit is working, stay in that bit. If that bit is not working, find an easy transition out of that bit. And the best comics in the world, when they find something, some of them have a loose structure of like, a type 5 is different, right? Like your type 5, you have that almost down to the T, word by word, syllable by syllable. But if you're doing a longer set and you're in a room and an audience that for some reason, first 2 jokes didn't land, but that third joke killed, turn that into a little bit of crowd work. Like really dive deeper until that you squeeze everything out of it. And so I think there's so many founders or VCs, whoever, who are like, okay, in this pitch, I need to make sure I hit team, fund model, capital call structure, whatever else. But I think I've spent more time listening and being in that real-time conversation where, oh, okay, this guy really only cares about how our companies will exit if there's no M&A activity and the IPO window is closed. And so I'm going to spend time digging into different forms of what the secondary market looks like and how we could buy or sell positions in that space, which maybe wasn't part of my original pitch and overview. So I think that's part of it. But also, honestly, the other thing is these are all people. Like everyone just wants to laugh, be listened to, feel happy.
Hmm.
to be there, feel like they're learning. And so I think it's a little bit of that too.
Hmm. Did I see something about maybe it was your first fund, like pitch prospectus? You had a link to some of your comedy, and like that was the most clicked
Yeah.
part of your entire
Yeah,
pitch.
because
That,
we put everything on DocsEnd,
yeah.
and so you could track who opens what pieces of it. And so that's the other thing that like some LPs like I don't think realize when they're like, oh yeah, we walk through the deck and details like I just got the notification that you just opened it a minute before the call and you spent 90% of the time on like the executive summary stuff, which is like fine. But we have more data
Yeah.
than everyone thinks on it. But I put in such a big part was they were investing in me. So like I had a picture in there of like me going through chemotherapy when I looked very different than I look right now. And I put a link to a lot of my favorite bits are stand up on cancer.
Mm.
And so I put a link to one of those in there and people like
Mm.
if you are going through all of this and you don't want to see a link to like something that I like really enjoy doing. If a founder pitches me, like, get into another point you're making, like show me like a video if you're really intensely into ping pong and you like spend your time with a ping pong coach and you want to put a video of like you train like yeah, like I would love to see that. That's a really big important part of who you are and the business you are building and the like grit and tenacity you bring to that. Like
And tells you actually like quite a bit about a person.
100%. So honestly, I think you're if it is true that you when you invest in people, you're investing in people, you're investing in people. Like you're not just investing into what they do behind a computer. You're investing into their life. So
Yeah,
I think it's a little bit of that too.
that's a great point. So you have gone through Fund One and raised Fund Two as a solo GP, you and your EA.
Yeah. His
Uh,
name's Kale.
Cal,
Kale.
Kale.
Kale. Yeah.
Shout out Kale.
Yeah.
But do you have plans to grow the team now that you have this fresh funding, or what does the Oncology Ventures of 3 years from now, 5 years from now, what does it look like in your ideal?
So I think yes, there's something to be said for both sides of it. I think we run a very efficient business, which I could only do with the support of all of our strategic limited partners, our advisors. We have an incredible advisory board who like actually is an advisory board. They're not just faces on like we are meeting with them at least weekly
Wow.
and they go through our decks, our diligence, our memos, and are some of the leaders in the world on cancer care, venture healthcare. It's unbelievably lucky and fortunate that we have them on board.
Wow.
So we are able to, and our inbound is so efficient because people see cancer in data and they think of us. And so we've been able to scale, I think, in a really nice way because we've built it in a very specific, intentional manner. That being said, yeah, we're getting up there in number of portfolio companies. I want all of our LPs to continue to feel as in the loop and knowledgeable as they can. We do quarterly LP calls to keep everyone top of mind. If you can't make it, we record it. We send it out after. I think communication is everything. And there is definitely an opportunity where at some point, I don't know if that's in a week or in a few months or a year or so, where we bring on someone to help be an extension of that, make sure we're represented in the right rooms, continue to just do really good work for our partners and companies. In terms of where we are in 3 years, I would love for us to just be, we have an opportunity to be like internationally the data-driven cancer fund, like the group where if you want to improve cancer care, research, access today to improve outcomes and reduce costs, it makes sense to talk to us. Whether we are an interesting funding source for you or whether you are interested in investing and getting exposure to that space, both in the US and abroad, that'd be really cool. And I think we're on our way there. We just hit 1/3 of cancer patients are now treated in the US by partners in our fund. And so that was a 10-year goal that we were able to achieve this it was end of March. And so I don't know, maybe it's like a this and that flattens out for a bit, but if we could hit 50%, that would be pretty crazy. I think it was hard to get that first 5% and then took some time, effort, energy. I don't know what the 33 to 50% will be like, but
That is an incredible statistic.
yeah, I should have open with that.
um, well, thank you so much for having this conversation. I've
Yeah.
really enjoyed it. Is there any other advice that you think that an early stage founder who is setting out on a journey within cancer care that they need to know in order to be successful if they want to go the venture back route?
I think be very clear about your timeline and process and follow through with that. Because the companies we have seen that have done the best job are groups that they say, okay, we're going to spend the next 3 months doing this. Here's our hit list of VCs. AI is so good now. Like literally, put all of your stuff into Claude or whatever else and come up with a clear rationale for the top 10 hit list. Pull in your LinkedIn, pull in your Gmail, ask it to tell you who could introduce you to eat. Like it's so good that finding that hit list, being very clear about what capital you need and why. Like there are so many people that just raise VC money because they think they should raise VC money. Like you didn't, right? Like you bootstrapped this. Like maybe you should bootstrap. Like maybe you shouldn't give up 10, 15, 20% of your company if you could do it in the right way. So I think be intentional about who you're going out to, if you should go out, what the use of funds really is behind that. And then just tell a clean, crisp story, have your data room ready, send stuff in advance, get to know people, show up in their cities. I mean, for us fundraising wise, there were so many times where I picked a few cities, set up an anchor meeting, and then just told people I was in town. And it is amazing. People's willingness to go show up, to shake your hand in person, first hop on a Zoom call is it's a really big difference. I mean, even like I was more excited to do this here with you face to face, and maybe that's just me, than I would have if you're like, hey, can we get a few minutes to do this virtually? Like there's something about being here where like this is fun.
Yeah.
And I think people are craving that human connection again too. So yeah, show up, go meet people in person, be intentional, have your story right, and get ready to go deep with people that want to go deep in certain areas and don't overly stick to a script.
Yeah, that's really great advice. I think founders sometimes forget that VCs are people too, and they think of them as just like sources of capital. But you really should be building your relationship with the VC from day one. And I talked to a lot of VCs who are evaluating a founder's thoughtfulness of their emails or the promptness of their follow-ups. Like every single interaction that you have with a VC is like telling them something about your potential as being a long-term partner with them. So like de-emphasizing the human element, I think, is like a very big unforced error for a lot of founders.
100%. Oh my God, what an easy. How many either emails or LinkedIn's do you get where it'll say like, "Hey John,"
Yeah.
just take a second. Like just take a second to be like, I don't know, just personalize it in some form of the right way.
Right. And to your point, there's no excuse anymore because AI has gotten so good that it's really not even that big of a lift to like put some personalization into it.
Yes.
I'm a little bit upset because I thought we were going to make it through this entire podcast without talking about AI, but you brought it in like right at the end there.
Sorry.
That was the longest that we'd gone on any of these, but for sure, before it came up though. So kudos to you for that.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
But yeah, Ben, thank you so much again.
Thank you.
This is a really awesome conversation. I'm excited for some founders to learn a little bit more about your story and how they can put their best foot forward with you.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks everyone. And yeah, if people want to get in touch, we'll figure out a way either through you, but
where can people find you?
Our Oncology Venture Substack is my favorite thing. We just hit 17,000 subscribers.
Wow.
Which is pretty crazy. We do theses on specific companies and what we're seeing in the market, and then the back half is always stand-up comedy. Which right now I write it. I went back and forth between doing video. Maybe we'll find like some AI way for it to put me on like a stage and have it like do voice AI for it, but as of now it's written.
Amazing. Well, looking forward to following along with your journey on stage and in helping to bring about new solutions for patients who are going through cancer. So yeah, appreciate everything that you're doing.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex.
Yeah.